السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شان حبيبي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه على سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه صلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. So for the past 4 weeks we've been talking about Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and we'll continue with that today. And as I said at the beginning and also in between many times, the whole emphasis here that I want to make is the connection between Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his attitude towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his connection with Ahlul Bayt, with the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you know, this is important on multiple levels. As we know, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that teach your children 3 things. And the first thing he said to teach them was Hubb Nabiyyaka, the love of your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the second thing is Hubb Ahl Bayti, the love of the household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the third thing he said was Tilawat al-Quran, the recitation of the Quran. You know, unfortunately, what happens with most of us now is that the first 2 are completely ignored. And, you know, we start off the children teaching them or teaching people, you know, whether they're children or anyone, the Quran, the recitation of the Quran. And the problem is, as we've talked about so many times, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيُذِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا, that He guides many by this, or rather, many are misguided by this, and many are guided by this. Same thing, but because of the perspective that someone comes at it from, you know, the attitude, the way, you know, they approach it, is what decides whether they will attain guidance or misguidance. And that is one of the beauties of the Quran. That doesn't matter what you want, whatever you want, that's what you'll get. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in other places He explains also who He guides by this book and those who are misguided by this book. Because the ones who are guided by the book are the ones who have taqwa. Those who are willing to humble themselves before the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Those are the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides. And anyone else falls into the other category. So, when we look at the Quran itself, the reason the Quran is the third thing is because if we don't have the love of the Rasulullah and if we don't have the love and the respect of his household, then we're not going to attain anything from the Quran. And he didn't say teach them the love of the Quran. He says teach them the recitation of the Quran. Because if you love Rasulullah, you will automatically love the Quran. And if you love Ahlul Bayt, you will also automatically start to understand the Quran. And if you don't love Rasulullah, you will not love the Quran. Doesn't matter whether you memorize it or not. You know, you read it every day. But there will be no true connection there. At least not one that will benefit you in the hereafter. You know, and this is why this is so important. And when we look at the attitude of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and his attitude towards Rasulullah, his attitude towards Ahlul Bayt, we see this perfection in his love for Rasulullah and his love for Ahlul Bayt. Even though there are many people that try to create issues between them and basically create issues where there were no issues. And part of the reason I'm doing this, I started this topic at this time, is today is the 3rd of Jamadil Akhir. The 21st, and some say the 22nd of this month, is the day that Abu Bakr radiallahu passed. Next month is Rajab. The 13th of Rajab is the day of the birth of Sayyidina Ali, karamallahu wajh. And of course we know he was born inside of the Kaaba. He is the only one who was born inside of the Kaaba. And I'll go into those details later, inshallah, and when we get to that aspect of things. So last week we were talking about the Hijrah, you know, when Rasulullah immigrates from Makkah to Medina Munawwara. And as I said, you know, the one who he takes along with him is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. The one who he left in his bed, in his place, was Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh. So, as we mentioned last week, you know, when they enter the cave, it is dark. It's the middle of the night. They can't light a fire, otherwise they will be seen. Abu Bakr, in that condition, goes into the cave. He asks Rasulullah to stay outside until he goes in and cleans it out and makes sure that there's nothing, you know, no scorpions, nothing in there that might harm someone. And he's not concerned about himself. He's concerned about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in that condition, he goes in, no flashlight, nothing, and yet he's able to do all of this because he's seeing through the nur of Allah. He's seeing through because of his connection to Rasulullah, so he's seeing with that light. You know, and people kind of, you know, ask, you know, you've experienced this. You know, there's some people, you know, even though, like, if their physical description, if you give a physical description, it may not be that good looking. But they come into a room and it's just like everything lights up. And then you have other people who, you know, if you give a physical description, yeah, they're very handsome. But they come into the room and everything's just, you know, just bad. Because that nur, and this is why we see later on, you know, especially when Islam and the Muslims were going into non-Muslim lands, and especially when they got into, you know, like Sham and Iraq and other places, Egypt, you see a host of people becoming Muslim simply by looking at the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they saw in them the reflection of the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that light. This is also why they see us and they're repulsed from because they associate us with the religion, even though unfortunately most of us, if you get down to the nitty and gritty, you know, get down to the bottom line, I mean, you know, we got to question ourselves. Where are we? Who are we? So he goes in, he cleans it out. Rasulullah comes in, as I mentioned, you know, last week. You know, this is when Quraysh, they come, they're at the front of the cave. And they're walking around. And there are holes in the cave. You know, of course, most of them Abu Bakr has covered up. There are still places where you can see from underneath the rocks, you can see their feet. People walking around outside. And Abu Bakr, he says, Ya Rasulullah, they're going to find us. They'll see us. And of course, when they come to the opening of the cave, they see this perfect spider web. And so they say, you know, well, no one could have gone in. Otherwise, at least you'd have some, the spider web's not going to be this perfect spider web. Abu Bakr RA is saying to Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, they're going to see us. They're going to see us. And Rasulullah, he says, La tahzan inna Allah ma'ana. Do not grieve. Allah is with the two of us, with both of us. And this is mentioned in the Quran in verse number 40 of Surah Tawbah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to Abu Bakr RA as the companion. He is the only companion of Rasulullah whose companionship is directly proven from the Quran. So to deny him being a companion is kufr, because you're denying the Quran. The same verse and the words of Rasulullah also affirm his iman, his faith. And also affirm that this faith is not going to change later on. Because when Musa a.s., along with his people, are leaving Egypt and they come to the sea, and the army of Pharaoh is chasing them, and they see all this dust coming, and Bani Israel is saying to Musa a.s., you have killed us. They're going to catch up and they're going to kill us. You killed us. Why did you take us out? They're complaining. Musa a.s. also tells them, don't fear. But then he says, Inna ma'aya Rabbi sayahdeen. He says, my Lord is with me, and he will guide me. He didn't say, my Lord or our Lord is with us. He says, my Lord is with me. This is Musa a.s. And here Rasulullah is saying to his companion that Allah is with us, the two of us. See, if you look at Bani Israel, the children of Israel that were with Musa a.s., who did they have amongst them? You had amongst them Qarun, who is the cousin of Musa a.s. Yet he is one of the wazirs of Pharaoh, whom Pharaoh had made wealthy because he was his inside man. And Qarun still, even though he might be marching with the believers, he has no faith. You have amongst them Samari, the one who made the golden statue that many of them started worshiping, of the calf. You have those who are going to worship the calf. You have all of these people there. And Allah is not with them because they have chosen not to be on the way of Allah. And so Musa a.s. doesn't include them. He says, my Lord is with me. Here with Rasulullah you have Abu Bakr Siddiq, who is given the title of Siddiq by Rasulullah for testifying to the truthfulness of Rasulullah. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala testifies to him being a companion of Rasulullah. And he repeats the words of Rasulullah in the Quran, where Rasulullah testifies to the iman and the faith of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Eventually Quraysh leave, and after spending 3 days and nights in the cave, now it's deemed that it's safe to get out and at least start continuing the journey. So again, in the middle of the night, they get out and they continue on their journey. And I'm not going to go into the details of the journey. But eventually they will make their way to Quba, which is right on the outskirts of Medina Munawwara. And many things happen in between. As we know, one of the major things is Suraqa bin Malik, who eventually will become radiallahu anhu. is chasing them because they have a bounty on their head, 100 camels each, dead or alive. So basically, modern day equivalent, you become a double millionaire. And of course, as Suraka is chasing them, Abu Bakr is on the camel with the Rasulullah looking back and saying, Ya Rasulullah, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. Again, he's not worried about himself. He's already, forfeited his life for the service of Rasulullah. He's worried about, if he catches us, then what will happen to Rasulullah. And eventually Suraka catches up and he ends up going into the dirt and coming out and then asking for the help of Rasulullah to get him out. And then promising Rasulullah that he will make sure that no one follows them on this path. After Rasulullah gives him the guarantee of receiving the crown and the golden bangles of Kisra, the Persian emperor. And that gets into a lot of other details. When they arrive in Quba, 3 days after they're there, finally Ali radiallahu comes and joins them. Here, important point to understand. Quraysh, even though they are the enemies of Rasulullah, and they accuse him of so many things, and they do all of these things against him. But when they have something to be kept safe, where do they go? They come to him. Because they knew he's not going to violate any trust. So he had all of these things that he had with him in the house that were trust from other people that now needed to be given back. Now the problem was if he gave them back before he left, then Quraysh would be on high alert. Oh, he's leaving right now. So first he tells Ali, you will sleep in my bed. And then he tells him, he said, you'll join us 3 days later because you have to give back all of these trusts. And this was something that can only be done by Ali. And there are reasons for this. And one of the main reasons is if somebody trusts me with something personally, then I am the one who has to give it back to him personally. Or someone who can represent me at that personal level. And the only one who could represent him at that personal level was Ali, radiallahu anhu. And so, when Ali was giving it back, it was the same as the Rasulullah giving it back. This is also why, in the 9th year of Hijri, when Abu Bakr is sent as the Amir of the Hajj, and as soon as he leaves, the verses are revealed from beginning of Surah Tawbah, which declares that the non-Muslims, because they have violated all these treaties with the Rasulullah, that the non-Muslims in Makkah and Quraysh and the surrounding areas who are part of these treaties, they have 4 months. Either they accept Islam or they leave, and they can no longer enter Makkah. So the question comes up, okay, well, who will recite these verses? And the answer is that it has to come from the tongue of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not going for the Hajj that year. And Abu Bakr was sent as the Amir of the Hajj. And so it is decided that Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh is the one who will recite these verses. So when he goes and joins Abu Bakr, because they had already left, so when he goes and joins him, Abu Bakr asks, why have you come? Have you come to lead, or am I still the Amir? He says, no, you're still the Amir. You will still lead. He says, then why did you come? He says, because Rasulullah said that I have to recite these verses. So Abu Bakr says, well, I could recite the verses. And Ali says, No, because this is a direct order from Rasulullah. I cannot, put my thinking into this. When he has ordered this, then I can't say, well, yeah, you could, so I'm going to give it to you. There's no room for that. So Abu Bakr RA goes back to Rasulullah. Not because he was upset that Ali was going to recite the verses. No, he's concerned that maybe Rasulullah or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upset with him. And that's why he's not being allowed to recite the verses. That's his concern. This is an aspect of love. That the lover is always concerned that the beloved is maybe upset with him. Always making sure, that my beloved, is paying attention to me and is not upset with me. So when he goes back, he asked Rasulullah, he said, yeah, Rasulullah, did some verse come in relation to me? Some revelation come regarding me? Maybe Allah is upset with me. He says, no verse came. No revelation came in regards to that. But Ali is the one who can do this because the treaties were with the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so the only one who can make this declaration other than Rasulullah himself was Ali. And so when they went for the Hajj, Abu Bakr gave the khutbah, but the verses were recited by Ali. So again, you have this connection between the two of them. As I said before, it's interesting. You will see them paired off in this way. We see that from the beginning. As I mentioned last week, when they arrived in Quba, the people had a hard time distinguishing who was who. Because they start coming to Abu Bakr thinking that he's the messenger. And a lot of people will tell you, and a lot of books have written this, that Abu Bakr, even though he was 2 years younger than Rasulullah, he looked older. He had grayed early. Rasulullah, by the end of his the 63 years, only 17 of his hair had become white. And those were due to specific revelations, including Surah Waqia. So everybody's coming and greeting Abu Bakr like he's the messenger. And so when Abu Bakr realizes this, he stands up and takes his sheet and uses it to shade Rasulullah to show, no, he is the messenger, I am his servant. But the reason they couldn't tell the difference, because you had people there who knew Abu Bakr from before. Abu Bakr in Arabia was well known because of his business dealings, and everybody, he was very well known throughout Arabia. And Yathrib was a major stop between Sham and Mecca. If you had these caravans, trade caravans coming through, going from Syria or Sham to Mecca, or from Mecca to Sham, most of them stopped in Yathrib, which would become Medina Munawwar. And so you have people there who know him, but they still couldn't recognize who's who. And this is where, that connection of love, the effects, where the servant takes on the characteristics of the one that he loves. To the extent that people have a hard time telling who is who. This is why he had a hard time telling. I'm going to fast forward things because I want to get to that connection with Ali. And there's some aspects of Ali before that we need to talk about as well. So like we see like in the Battle of Badr. Ali radiallahu anhu is known as the alleviator of difficulties. And many people will say, oh, this is shirk. Because Rasulullah is also alleviator of difficulties. These are characteristics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed within them. This is part of their character. It's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the authority for fire to burn. That's what fire does. And if I say, no, only Allah burns. The strength, only Allah has the power to burn. So, and I jump into the fire, then I have no right to be complaining, when I get burnt. To deny authority that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given is also kufr. And so, when I look at Ali, radiallahu anhu, he is this alleviator of difficulties. The command comes to fight, yet Rasulullah is rahmatul lil alameen. He is a mercy to all of creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rabbul Alameen. He is the Lord of all of creation. Rasulullah is the mercy to all of that creation. How can he pick up the sword? So who alleviated that difficulty for Rasulullah? Ali. So in the Battle of Badr, when Quraysh come against them, Ali radiallahu is on the, is fighting in the front. In the front lines, he's fighting. Abu Bakr RA is sitting with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Abu Bakr RA wants to go and join the fighting, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to him, he says, "Stay with me and let me benefit from your company." This is the honor Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gives him. This is the Messenger of Allah saying to Abu Bakr, "Let me benefit from your company." We can't. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam doesn't need to benefit from any of us. But this is the honor he has given to his friend. As we know, Ali Rada himself is Badr. Is in that battle, 70 of the leaders of Quraysh were killed. 36 of them, Ali Rada killed by himself. Another 13 he helped in. So the remaining 21 were for the other 312 soldiers in the Muslim army and the 5,000 angels that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to help them. In the Battle of Uhud, we know initially the Muslims are winning, and then everything turns around. Because there were some archers who moved from their position before Rasulullah gave them the order to move from their position, after he had told them not to move from their position until he ordered them to move from their position. But they thought, and here this is the difference here, as we talked about, Ali Rada, when Abu Bakr Rada is saying, okay, well, I could recite the verses, Ali Rada said, no. Rasulullah gave me this command, and that's it. Unless he gives me the command, nothing changes. Here, the archers, they thought, oh, the battle's over, so the order was only for the battle. And they moved from their position. And the whole situation turned around. What was going to be a very easy and complete victory turned into chaos and what most people term as a defeat for the Muslims, even though the reality is not. Because the reality is that there's so many lessons that we gain from this, that if that had not happened, we would not have gained. So, but very quickly, in that battle, when all this confusion occurs, and everyone who was around Rasulullah ﷺ was swept away. You know, in the confusion, some ran, some were pushed away. All of this happens. This is one of the virtues of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu. And this is through a narration from his daughter Aisha Siddiqa radhiyallahu anha. She says that one of his virtues is that he was the first to return to the company of Rasulullah ﷺ. But the interesting thing is, when he returned, what did he see? He saw Sayyidina Ali radhiyallahu anhu fighting all around Rasulullah ﷺ. So Sayyidina Ali had never moved. You know, his feet remained firm. But all of those who had gotten swept away, Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu is the first to come back. I'll end here today. We'll continue next week, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill our hearts with His true love and give us understanding. And may He fill our hearts with the true love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all of those whom they love. And may He give strength and victory to our brothers and sisters in Palestine that are being oppressed over their oppressors. And wherever the people are being oppressed, may He give those who are being oppressed victory over their oppressors. Those who have not made sunnah, go and make sunnah, inshallah.